income jumping from $75,000 to $300,000 has got to be wild. I'm Tyler. I'm your host. This is a good problem to have. I wanted to talk about two common pitfalls I see doctors fall into as they transition out of training and into attendinghood. There's a lot of advice, useful advice for doctors in this situation. Let's just hone in on two for now. The first is, I deserve it now decision making. This is an understandable challenge for doctors because you've been waiting years. Many of you are waiting well over a decade where you're either making no income or you're making $40,000 to $70,000 a year while working so hard, and you wait to move forward on a lot of life plans. Sometimes it's a home purchase, sometimes it's living where you want to, sometimes it's expanding your family, sometimes it's some other experience in life that you want, and you have to wait. That $9,000 paycheck rolls in, and you immediately think, now's my chance, right? It's not unreasonable. And you do deserve to be able to expand things a bit. I definitely agree with that. But you've got to be careful by following these two cautions here. The first one being to avoid the I deserve it now decision making. The second one we'll talk about shortly. You're going to be in a position to protect yourself better. If you don't manage these pitfalls, though, you could set yourself back a bit. I'm talking about things like jumping out and buying the $1 million, $2 million house, especially when you don't know for sure how you feel about the new job that you have or the geographic location of where you're going to be living. You got to be really careful here. Note, I'm not talking about people who are moving back home and they know that they're going to stay there because that's what they've always wanted. I'm not talking about you. I may be talking about you, though, if you're trying to really push the limits of the multiplier here. Like if your income is $300,000 and you want to buy a $1.5 million house, that is a dangerous precipice you are on, because that's 5 times your income. And the higher the multiple, the more you're saying this decision is important to me. And a lot of doctors, they get out of training and they're like, I've got this income, I can afford the payment because look at my income now. I'm pulling in $12, $15, $18, $25,000 a month. I can afford a $6,500 mortgage payment. And I'm not saying that you can't based on that range. I'm just saying that at first, when you see the paycheck and you think, well, what would the mortgage be? Quick, I'm going to go to a mortgage calculator and just see how much it would cost. Yeah, I can afford this house. That sort of jump, that sort of hasty move, because you deserve it now. You're like, finally, I'm going to buy my forever home and I want to get there now. It can be very dangerous because there is a lot more context that you need to know and understand that will wrap around the home purchase decision. It's not that you can't buy this home. You just got to make sure that you do it the right way. Other examples are buying really expensive brand new cars, assuming that because you're a doctor and because you have that income, that your kids are all going to go to private school, pre-K all the way on up. Like that's what they deserve. I want to give them the best. Of course, it's understandable. You want to give them the best, and some doctors, they do. Some people I work with, they have intentionally moved to areas that they know have really good public school districts. In exchange, of course, the real estate is very expensive there. So you're, those are intertwined decisions, the home purchase and the private school, for parents that are prioritizing maximizing the primary school education experience for their kids. Other areas that you got to be careful of with the I deserve it now decision making is convenience spending. You're just like, well, you know what? If I do this, it's going to save time. If I do this, it's going to save time. And it can really chip away. What I'm not saying don't do things that are convenient. It's starting to assume that the default setting for your buying decisions is just to do what's most convenient every time, where you just assume everything's fine. I've got the money, no worry about it. I'm just going to spend on what I want because now I've got this higher paycheck. And similarly, just saying yes to everything. One thing comes to mind recently. Someone I know needed to they know that they're going to need to replace their water heater, and we had a conversation about the decision, like to time it and all that, and it's going to be like a $15,000 expense, just because there's some extra installation work and things involved. So it's pretty pricey with it, all in. And one thing that is really common to all of us is that if we see something that is going to need to be replaced or something that is going to need to be purchased at some point, we convince ourselves that we might as well just do it now because it's going to have to be done at some point anyway. It's not going to hurt me to buy it sooner, and then I will enjoy the benefits of it sooner. That is not inherently a bad approach of making decisions, because sometimes it does make sense. But if it's going to mean that you're going to be going into negative cash flow, what I mean by that is that you don't have the cash in the checking account to pay for it. You will once the next paycheck comes because you know you're going to get paid, but it's not there yet. That is what I'm talking about. And you're like, well, I can do it now because I know I'm going to get the paycheck, but you're playing from behind. And by taking that approach, you're potentially withholding something good from yourself. In this situation that I'm thinking of, the water heater is not broken. It's working. It's just the anticipation that it will stop working at some point. And I get that there's like a lag with like delivery of these things and installation. So it's not like, maybe there could be some inconvenience if it like stops working suddenly out of nowhere and there's no resolving it. Now you're like, oh, now we just have cold water, and Tyler suggested that we wait. I know I may have to face that consequence, but we talked all these pros and cons and determined that based on the inventory of the materials and the installers and everything that's involved, that it's worth just letting it ride for a while. Who knows? Like maybe this thing is going to last another 6 months, maybe another year. Like water heaters, most of them are built to last a long time. And while this water heater is old, it's still working. It's functioning. And that principle can be applied with anything that needs to be replaced. If we don't have the cash on hand to pay for it right now, and it can wait, why not wait? Is what I'm saying. Now, whether the right time for this type of purchase, like a water heater replacement or whatever it is the right time or not, is really dependent on the second pitfall. So now so far we've talking about the I deserve it now decision making, where it's like buy it now, buy the big house, buy the nice car, buy the replacement, buy the convenience, say yes to everything. I've got the high paycheck. Let's do it. You got to be very careful about this pitfall. The second one that's related that will help to support you knowing whether or not you're being unreasonable or even potentially irresponsible in the first area that we've discussed is the second, which is skipping the boring stuff. Skipping the boring stuff. You want to spend, even maxing out your 401k is exciting. Buying the house, all those things are exciting, but there are some really important boring things that are going to help you to be able to actually enjoy not just physically, but also emotionally and mentally, knowing that you're well grounded in these decisions, by not skipping the boring stuff. So I've got 3 areas for you. 1, controlling cash flow. Second, build a real liquidity buffer. And then third, you got to identify tax liability before you start just investing. Because investing, very exciting. Spending cash, very exciting. Buying things that we want, also exciting. But controlling cash flow, building up savings for emergencies, and managing tax liability, those are very boring. But they will help you to really enjoy the exciting things, I promise you. So let's take these one by one. Controlling cash flow. What this means is that you got to know where your money's going and why, and adjusting according to necessities and priorities. So there's, you get the higher paycheck, and that's great. But now it hits your checking account, and you're like, okay, what am I going to do with this? We talked about the things that a person may really want or enjoy, like being able to upgrade their home or something else. But is there enough to really support that decision? What do all of your needs represent financially speaking? You've got monthly expenses. Perhaps you have student loan payments. You may have, depending on your employment situation, you may at first be on a guaranteed salary, but then you're gonna have to build up your efficiency, build out your patient panel in order to continue to support that. There's a lot of factors here to be able to discern, can I afford this home? And so you need to understand current cash flow management. Where is my spending happening right now and why? If I do that calculation and I got my income and I subtract my average spending, then that helps me to see if I'm actually saving right now, and if so, how much? And what does that savings margin represent in terms of options, student loan payments, increasing my housing expenses, setting aside money for travel, setting aside more money for retirement savings. There's a lot of conflicting priorities here, but you won't know what they are or what your options really are until you know your cash flow. So, and it's not just current cash flow, but future cash flow, depending on your employment situation. Like I mentioned, the guaranteed salary transition to productivity. That's a big deal. Are you able to sustain the same level of income? Maybe your income will increase, but it's not guaranteed once you make that jump. If you're in private practice, and that's a very, very common path. Another is if you're in academia and you expect let's say that you're eager to follow the ladder of being assistant, associate, full professor role, and those do come with pay increases over time. But are there bonus structures based on patient satisfaction or other nebulous factors that you don't quite understand? You don't want to be basing your financial decisions on a number that you don't really understand yet. So, for example, I've had some doctors tell me that their income is $400,000. And so the $1.2 million house makes sense because it's 3x, and they've heard that 3x is high, but it's still workable. And that's not untrue, but we've had to go back and look into what their income represents. What makes up that $400,000? And in some scenarios, it's been where the income base salary is like $250,000, but that they've heard or they've been told by their colleagues or other people in the administrative department that with their incentives, with their productivity bonus and their incentive bonus, they should be able to make up the $150,000, no problem. It is really easy to say that, but you haven't lived it yet. Now, of course, if you're someone who has been in a job and yeah, this is how it works, and I know what my RVUs are, and I know where I'm at for the year, and things are moving along the way that I expect them to, and so maybe that 400 is realistic. But if you have not lived it and actually gotten those paychecks, and you're in that cadence of understanding the makeup of your income, then you may not really have any business assuming that your income is $400,000. Cash flow control is really, really critical. And all this goes into understanding that. The second thing that I mentioned of building a liquidity buffer, it's like mainly talking about an emergency fund. It is, it feels, it feels really, really good to be able to have that 3 months worth of cash just sitting there in a high yield savings account. It might feel like you're not really making any progress, especially like if you're interested in investing or you're very eager to take action on those homes on Zoom that you're interested in purchasing or like looking at. You're like, oh, I got to keep tucking away a few $1,000s per month into the emergency fund. It's boring, but it protects you. It helps to make sure that like when you do purchase that home or you do start spending money in other ways, that you've got a buffer to protect you in case of emergencies. That you're not suddenly having to go into credit card debt, or that suddenly you're going to have to like take from the vacation fund or your Roth IRA in order to make ends meet short term because you don't have cash. It's a protection. It helps you. It not only helps in these ways with like spending management, it's also really good for investor behavior. The stock market goes up and down. It is volatile, and having that cash on hand, it helps with behavior. You know, I'm investing this money for 20, 30, 40 years from now. I have cash for now in case there's an emergency. I look at my 403B account and the value is down by like 8% from the last time I checked, and I'm like, that's nobody likes that. But it also helps you to like train your mind to know that money's not now money. I need to leave that alone and keep feeding it. I've got my now money. I know exactly where it's at. It's in my high yield savings account. It's a protection. It's a behavior supporter. And then the last thing, fixing your taxes before just jumping into investing. You gotta like understand like what type of investment accounts have an effect on like your tax liability, like pre-tax versus post-tax. Also your income type, if you're W-2 or if you get paid 1099, there's very different impacts on your tax liability based on those different types of income. So knowing the above, it'll help you to learn what your options are in terms of tax liability management, and then it'll help you to make better investment decisions and investment location decisions. I forgot, there's actually a fourth one. You got to protect the downside. This is very boring. Insurance analysis, disability insurance, homeowners insurance, umbrella insurance. Oh my goodness, we would all fall asleep reading these policies, right? Well, not us planners. We love doing it because we get to look into the details and find out if it's a great policy or if it's something that needs to be shored up. That's our job, and I know it's probably surprising, but I find it interesting. But each of us has to take ownership of this. You've got to get your level term life insurance. You've got to get your own occupation disability insurance covered. You got to max these things out. Income loss, financial plan killer. You could be the best investor in the world. If all of a sudden you can't use your hands and you're a proceduralist, your plan is toast. You've got to get coverage. You got to make sure that you can fully replace not only current expenses, but also your ability to save for the future. Because even disability insurance only lasts until age 65, typically. And if you suffer a disability that stops you from doing your job, but you'll still live a very long life, you've got to protect that. I know these things are boring, but they're so, so important. If you do this, then you can invest. Then you can take the bull by the horns and take action. Then you can be more informed with your decisions around the home purchase and the cars and the travel and debt payoff and all that. You got to get the context around these big decisions that are important to you. That'll help you to be a better investor and a better decision maker as you make this huge leap into attendinghood. I'll see you all next time.